The pioneering spirit is nothing new to agriculture, as innovation has made farming in America the most productive and technologically advanced in the world. Yet, tomorrow will present a new set of challenges that'll require new ideas, inventions, and innovations. That is what Farm Next is all about, showing you the future of farming. From autonomous robots to cutting-edge digital tools to better ways to fertilize your crops and increase soil health, this program will give you a glimpse of the exciting future agriculture has in store. Stay tuned to see what's next on Farm Next. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Farm Next. I'm Max Armstrong, and I'm thrilled to be a part of giving you a front row seat into what's next in the world of agriculture. Before we get to what's next, let's talk about a transformational technology that's here right now, microbes that can replace nitrogen fertilizer. Not that many years ago, the co-founders of Pivot Bio dreamed of creating a better way to provide nitrogen to crops. And like the inventors you'll hear from today, they dedicated time, effort, and capital to turn their dream into a reality. Today, Pivot Bio's products deliver nitrogen to corn, wheat, and sorghum and have been used by farmers across the country. Pivot Bio knows just how challenging it is to transform an idea into a product and to get it into the hands of farmers. So Pivot Bio, together with Farm Progress, scoured the country and found 10 entrepreneurs with the potential to be that next big idea for the future of agriculture. Each of these companies is vying for a chance to showcase their idea at this year's Farm Progress Show in Boone, Iowa. In each episode, you'll see these cutting-edge innovations in action. You'll meet the brilliant minds behind each idea, and you'll learn more as each participant presents their ideas to leaders in investing, agribusiness, and farming. And you, our audience, can vote live during the show whether you think each idea has what it takes to appear at the Farm Progress Show. You'll do that by going to pivotbio.com/vote. There you can enter to win a VIP package to the Farm Progress Show. In today's episode, we take a look at Phospholutions. It's a startup that is enhancing phosphorus use on the farm. Their fertilizer additives increase nutrient efficiency while helping protect our precious natural resources. Stay tuned to learn about Phospholutions. But first, here's a short video from Pivot Bio. Take a look.
6:45 in the morning with a chance of showers.
Farmers have always taken care of what they value. Through hard work and resilience, they cultivated bountiful land. As the country grew, great revelations led to a green revolution, one that helped feed the world. Then it happened. Fewer hands worked the land, while more lived off it. Yet farmers took on the challenge. They pivoted, improved, and fed a nation hungry for progress. As Americans dialed up, farmers dialed in. Precision on the farm led to yields once thought impossible. But when it came to nitrogen, it wasn't precise or predictable enough. Not for the farmer, the crop, nor the environment. Today, Pivot Bio provides a better way to deliver a more dependable and productive nitrogen in the field, while giving growers a new tool to take care of what matters most. Farmers deserve a nitrogen worthy of who they are and what their land can provide. And now there is one. It's time to turn to a better nitrogen.
We're going around talking to all the farmers in Iowa because we're trying to build the ultimate farm truck.
Dude! Yeah, in your cab.
There are over 2 million farmers in the United States. One of them is about to win some cash for their local FFA chapter.
I don't know that the public knows what they want out of sustainability.
If they're asking us to grow cover crops and to plant non-GMO, our expenses are going to go up. Yields are going to go down. At that point, we're not sustainable.
All right, so when you think of Wisconsin, what do you think of, aside for beer and cheese and people wearing cheese while drinking beer?
you have to have nitrogen.
It's really a microcosm of one of the biggest questions that we face. Can we feed the world and save the world?
Visit pivotbio.com/originals to see these shows and more.
Unscripted, unfiltered, unapologetic.
It's a suburban mom and having to satisfy that suburban mom on social media.
Diner stops and real talk. The voice of farmers, not politicians or promise makers. Just honest conversation about agriculture's biggest issues. Nothing is off limits.
Well, have you ever seen a GMO peanut?
How about organic tuna?
Organic tuna. That's a good one.
This is The Farmer's Table, an original series from Pivot Bio.
So what we're doing, Dan, is we're going around talking to all the farmers in Iowa because we're trying to build the ultimate farm truck. What is the best truck for
Let's
you
see
guys?
what you guys are rolling with right now.
Lights are critical.
Flatbed.
Toolboxes.
You know, workbench height.
These guys need a truck that's ready to work, has power, can get dirty. Follow us as we design, build, and give away the ultimate farm truck.
Welcome back to Farm Next, the show that gives you a front row seat into what's next to the world of agriculture. In today's episode, we take a look at Phospholutions, a startup that is enhancing phosphorus use on the farm. Before we meet CEO Hunter Swisher, here's a short video about the company from the field. Take a look.
I'm Hunter Swisher. I'm the CEO and founder of Phospholutions. Fertilizer is expensive and very inefficient, and our whole approach is to try to maximize the use of those fertilizers to drive better farmer profitability. We started with our first product line, Rhizosorb, which we incorporate into conventional fertilizer sources to produce a higher efficiency product that delivers more of the phosphorus into the plant and less into the environment. The thing I'm most excited for about Rhizosorb is the opportunity to return more of those dollars into the farmer's pocket than down into the waterways. We use a mineral-based adsorbent that has a high surface area that allows us to bind phosphate to the surface in the soil and store it until it releases back into the solution over time. The value that our technology provides is the opportunity to improve the efficiency on the farm field to get the same yield with less inputs. Unlike nitrogen, phosphorus is a finite resource. We mine it similar to petroleum in just a few select geographies around the world, and we're running out of it at a pretty alarming rate. This is a global food security risk. About 10 to 30% of it is actually ever getting into the crop. 90% is lost from mine to fork. Pretty alarming when you think about the fact that this is the second largest nutrient needed for global food production. So for us, the focus is trying to get more of the fertilizer into the crop so that less of it needs to be applied to achieve the same productivity on an acre. We can change agriculture with Rhizosorb. We're the only proven technology on the market to be able to reduce 50% of phosphorus use. Managing phosphorus more efficiently isn't just better for the bottom line, but it also has the potential to improve soil health as well as plant growth. We've seen with our product we can increase water use efficiency, promote better root development, and a long other list of plant growth benefits. We've been very fortunate to be able to get our technology out into the hands of the farmers over the last few years, testing this in some very academic settings, but also in some real-life commercial trials, and we're on track to launch this product in spring of 2023. Phosphorus is an industry primed for innovation, and we've been working on this for over 30 years. We can improve profitability and make farming more sustainable with Rhizosorb. I think the farmers are looking for solutions, and I think the farmers are willing to take on new solutions, and I think there's a huge appetite for agricultural technologies like ours.
With me now is Hunter Swisher, CEO of Phospholutions. Hunter, we want to find out about your company, but first about yourself. What's your background?
Hey Max, so my background is predominantly in plant sciences. I've had the pleasure of going to Penn State where I had the opportunity to learn more about this technology before commercialization.
What took you down this path to forming your company?
Really, I think both the opportunity that was presented as a college student to be able to start a business, but also the opportunity to really make a change with the technology that had been sitting on the shelf for a few years.
We hear interesting stories about how the idea came to pass. Sometimes you're sitting at a restaurant making notes on a napkin, or maybe on the beach somewhere. Was there an aha moment for you when you said, "Oh yeah, this is worth a try"?
Yeah, it actually happened sitting in a classroom. So we were learning all about kind of the global phosphorus issue. And learning about the future of fertilizer, when I had the opportunity to learn that a professor of mine had developed a technology that could be very meaningful in the marketplace, but there was not a clear path to market. And so that was really the aha moment, was sitting in a classroom in school.
For those of us watching who may wonder, what's the phosphorus issue that you mentioned?
Yeah, so global phosphorus use is both inefficient and unsustainable. Basically, the phosphorus is very much a finite resource. We mine it in just a few select regions around the world. The challenge is that we're running out of that resource in a pretty alarming rate. And regardless of that long-term threat, right now fertilizer prices have been out the roof, and there's a clear need for a tool for farmers to be able to manage that input more efficiently.
So sourcing phosphorus is a growing concern, for one thing, and then there's the environmental concern now.
The fact is only about 10 to 30% of the fertilizer that's applied is actually taken up by the crop. The remaining ends up sitting in the soil for a very long time, or unfortunately ends up in our waterways. And that water contribution is a pretty alarming fact. So about 70% of our freshwater worldwide will experience some form of phosphorus pollution, most typically in the form of an algae outbreak.
Many of our growers have been concerned about, depending on their location. Many sit in a watershed that naturally feeds our rivers, and they feel like they've certainly been under the magnifying glass in their operations, but this could really help them in managing that important input, you're saying.
Yeah, so our approach is very much trying to drive higher efficiency in fertilizer, and first to affect the bottom line. Right now, fertilizer use is very inefficient with our conventional sources, but it doesn't mean that we can't also be more sustainable in that process. And so we can save the farmer a few bucks per acre and also prevent that fertilizer from ending up in our waterways.
Have you had the opportunity to get grower feedback, some producers actually using your product and telling you what their experience has been?
Yeah, so the nice part about our solution is that it's pretty much, it fits directly into current grower standard practices. So essentially we sell our additive upstream to the fertilizer manufacturers. They actually integrate the technology into the finished fertilizer granule. And so when it shows up to the retailer and you're spreading it out on the field, it's the exact same looking material, spread the exact same way. It just allows us to use less to get the same or better yield.
And economically, it makes sense too?
Economically, the goal is to be able to provide a cost savings on what your conventional phosphate use would typically look like.
I can tell you're excited about your product. What really drives your passion here to bring this forward and to bring this answer to the folks in the farming community?
Yeah, so our mission at Phospolutions is very much global. We're really focused on trying to manage this finite resource more efficiently, and we felt that the first place to start is to use the 90% of what we mine is going to be used as fertilizer. So the most important part to start is making sure that what gets applied to the farm field actually gets into the crop. And so my passion is really, I would say, more around the sustainability piece, the opportunity to impact this. But I think the reality is that if this doesn't make sense for the grower economically, it's not going to ever be adopted.
It's an exciting story, and there are some folks who have more questions for you, Hunter, so don't go away. Now that we've learned how Phospolutions got to where they are today, our panel will scope out where the company could be heading next. When we return after these brief messages.
We're going around talking to all the farmers in Iowa because we're trying to build the ultimate farm truck.
Yeah, in your cab. There are over 2 million farmers in the United States. One of them is about to win some cash for their local FFA chapter.
I don't know that the public knows what they want out of sustainability.
If they're asking us to grow cover crops and to plant non-GMO, our expenses are going to go up. Yields are going to go down. At that point, we're not sustainable.
All right, so when you think of Wisconsin, what do you think of? Aside for beer and cheese and people wearing cheese while drinking beer.
You have to have nitrogen.
It's really a microcosm of one of the biggest questions that we face. Can we feed the world and save the world?
Visit pivotbio.com/originals to see these shows and more.
Unscripted, unfiltered, unapologetic.
It's a suburban mom, and having to satisfy that suburban mom on social media.
Diner stops and real talk. The voice of farmers, not politicians or promise makers. Just honest conversation about agriculture's biggest issues. Nothing is off limits.
Well, have you ever seen a GMO peanut?
How about organic tuna?
Organic tuna. That's a good one.
This is The Farmer's Table, an original series from Pivot Bio.
The United States of America can be very different from one state to another, but one thing every state has in common is agriculture. And the farms across America are like the patchwork of a quilt that binds our nation together, and each state is represented in their own unique way.
Hey everyone, I'm Charlie Behrens, and welcome to Agricultural States of America. We're going to test your knowledge about the agriculture of different states and hopefully give you a bit more appreciation for the great things farmers are producing across the country. Today we're starting off with my home state and America's dairyland, Wisconsin. All right, so when you think of Wisconsin, what do you think of? Aside from beer and cheese and people wearing cheese while drinking beer. How about cranberries? Now, believe it or not, Wisconsin is the top producer of cranberries in the United States. In fact, the cranberry is native to Wisconsin, and it's the state's leading crop in terms of acreage and value. All right, you can always go to pivotbio.com/originals and explore more agriculture from your favorite states and test your knowledge to win great prizes and more.
Hey, I got an announcement for all of America's farmers. You want to win the ultimate farm truck? You got to sign up right here. And if you do, it could be you that wins it.
Welcome back to Farm Next, and we're now on to the final portion of today's program, our panel examination. And joining us here, as I introduce our panelists, Karsten Temme, CEO and co-founder of Pivot Bio; Roger Underwood, an entrepreneur and investor in the agriculture industry; and finally, Lisa Peterson, who's a grower from Osage, Iowa. Karsten, first of all, what excites you about this part of the program?
Well, I'm looking forward to being able to connect entrepreneur to entrepreneur. For me, it's all about being able to talk about how ideas are transforming into solutions for some of the biggest problems our growers face.
Roger, talk a little bit about your background and what brings you here.
I started a company with another person in 1982, and we grew it up to a couple $100 million in sales, Max. And since then, I've become a serial investor in what's next in agriculture.
Lisa, you haven't always been on the farm. I know you were the National FFA president a few years ago, but you did come back. You're back very much in agriculture now.
You're correct, Max. Came back to the family farm about 9 years ago, so it's a great place to raise a family and teach them about the value and the hard work of being on a farm.
Well, Karsten, share your thoughts here about Phospholutions and ask some questions here of our guest.
Well, it sounds great. You know, let's dig right into some of the science to begin with. Can you give us a little bit more depth on how this works? What's the mechanism that makes it more capable of increasing our phosphorus efficiency?
Yeah, so essentially we try to target a key issue with phosphate that's unique, I'd say, over some of the other macronutrients, and that's the fact that phosphate is very reactive in the soil. So it likes to tie up with about anything in the soil. Essentially what we've developed is a technology that we incorporate into fertilizer manufacturing. It's a mineral-based adsorbent that allows for us to attach or bind phosphate to the surface of the product and release that based on plant needs. So essentially it's predominantly a chemical concentration gradient that drives the release of phosphate off the product, which makes it essentially not tie up in the soil, not wash off into the water, and instead create this reservoir the plant can access throughout the growing season.
I think I follow. It sounds like it really is almost like a slow release fertilizer.
It is. We call it more of a buffered release. It's not releasing based on time or temperature or moisture. It's releasing based on essentially as the plant draws phosphate out of the available pool. we are releasing and replenishing back what's taken up.
Every day it seems you pick up a publication, you hear on the radio about a new biological, bio this, natural that, the list goes on and on. How are you going to attract the necessary capital to grow your business in what I think is a crowded field?
Yeah, so I think from our perspective, first off, we have a very much a soil chemistry-based approach. So our product is not a biological in that sense, but instead we think that we can actually couple with kind of soil biology as a way to increase efficiency further. In terms of attracting capital, we found that phosphorus is somewhat of an untapped market today, but it's not a small one. It's the second largest nutrient needed for food production. And we think that a soil chemistry approach is slightly different than maybe a biological approach in that particular nutrient due to the nuance that phosphorus has. I mean, we're a technology and marketing company. I think the reality is that large producers are not necessarily equipped or typically selling a product that reduces phosphate usage. And so I think there is a little bit of a new message that needs to be promoted from the ground level there. But ultimately, we're a tech company. We're not a huge capital investment. We're not going to manufacture things long term. I mean, we are selling a technology that's embedded into the fertilizer granule.
So as a farmer, of course, the first thing I'm going to ask about and think about is the return on investment. What's the cost and what's the cost savings that I can get from maybe reducing my phosphorus?
Yeah, so we're in the process of launching this product to market next year. And as we develop that program, our approach is really, rather than trying to increase the amount of cost per acre to drive a higher yield, we've really taken an approach of trying to achieve the same yield with less fertilizer, deriving then a cost savings benefit to the grower.
Now, is there an opportunity for some extra value add on the sustainability side, or a way to get that value in the pocket of a grower?
We absolutely think that there's potential long-term to increase the value of the technology as sustainability continues to be driven further and further into the ag business. I think for our business today, we're trying to essentially develop the technology with the right unit economics that is completely independent of any future sustainability regulation or things that might drive additional value from the technology.
Who's your competitor?
Our competitor is honestly the lack of adoption. So I think typically with fertilizer, conventional fertilizer, when it's cheap, the idea is, let's not skimp out on fertilizer usage because that's necessary to our yield. In today's conditions with fertilizer prices, we see that farmers are much more receptive to try to utilize tools like this. But yeah, the competition is the lack of change.
So at this stage, what would you recommend me doing as a farmer to get my hands on the product?
Yeah, so we're rolling out next year in a controlled pilot launch through a couple select retailers. And, at this point, we're always looking for new growers to be able to do new trials, and we'd be happy to discuss. We can reach out through our website or directly.
So it sounds like if you're doing a limited rollout, you've got some partners with the phosphate fertilizer companies that are helping out with that.
Yep, and so we're targeting the U.S. to start. We do have global trials. We'll be doing trials in about 6 countries worldwide this year. And we have about 150 on-farm trials that have been completed to date, all focused here in the U.S.
So do you have some data then that maybe you could walk us through on the use efficiency? What would we normally see with phosphate versus what are we going to see with your product?
Yeah, so conventionally, only about 10 to 30% of applied phosphorus is ever taken up by that crop in the first year. And then what's not taken up tends to be tied up pretty long term. What we've been able to show on farm with our technology across 14 states here in the U.S. is that we can actually reduce phosphate use by up to 50% due to that increase in efficiency and still achieve the same or better yield.
What are some grower friends like to see a third-party evaluation? I know some guys like to see land grant agronomist using a product or perhaps a certified crop advisor. Have you had some of those folks looking at it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've rolled out to on-farm, that's after a handful of years of doing some pretty heavy academic work as well. So doing a lot of the small plot work at universities, third-party partners, a lot of contract research organizations, trusted advisors, etc.
You've been pleased with what you saw?
Yeah, so far it seems the growers are as well.
The question I want to ask is around the variability. In my field, nitrogen, it's variable across every acre. It depends on the rain. And I wonder, is that something similar that growers experience with phosphorus, or where do you see the biggest benefits from a management perspective?
Yeah, so I would say that phosphate is not as variable as nitrogen, and you can see that in some of our practices. Typically, nitrogen's applied in multiple applications. Phosphate typically is dumped on the field in a broadcast application in a granular form once a year. And so I think the challenge with phosphorus is that when you're dumping all that out in the field, one, you're not placing that in a precise manner, and two, you're allowing that phosphorus to solubilize essentially before the plant actually needs all of it. And so you get this huge spike in available phosphorus that then gets tied up and then gets stored in that soil in a form that's likely not going to be taken up by the crop very efficiently that year. So the challenge right now is trying to create a reservoir that the plant actually can access so that it slowly spoon feeds that phosphorus throughout the season.
So if I understand your product correctly, the manufacturer buys your product, he puts it on the phosphorus, the dealer gets it, then the grower gets it from the dealer when it's spread out across his field. Sounds to me like there's a sustainability play here. How are you going to play that up to get a little more value out of that? Because all growers are concerned about sustainability today.
Yeah, so look, water quality here in the U.S. is always a concern, especially as it relates to phosphorus. And the reality is that we're trying to apply less fertilizer per acre, but get a higher uptake per unit applied. And so that really is pretty compelling when you think about 50% less phosphorus being put out onto that farm field, how that downstream effect over time can be driven by such a significant reduction in use.
So we're pretty comfortable as farmers managing phosphorus in our spreads. Talk to me and talk to the farmers listening. Why should we change what we're doing? And help me understand what's the incentive for us to do that.
Yeah, look, so anybody that applied phosphorus this year is likely, feeling some heartburn in their wallets from the current pricing. And I think, even long term, phosphorus as a nutrient, it's costly. It's the second largest nutrient needed for food production. And that's not going anywhere anytime soon. And so really our focus is trying to drive a cost savings benefit by trying to get more out of what you're applying or be able to do more with less.
I hate to intervene, but we're about out of time. So Hunter, thank you very much. We wish you well as you proceed on down the path there with Phospholutions. And thank you, panelists, for your great questions. You folks watching at home, there's a role for you. We'd love to know what you think of Phospholutions. Just go to pivotbio.com/vote. And there you can also enter to win a VIP package to the Farm Progress Show in Boone, Iowa. You can also view there, by the way, other episodes of the show. And finally, come visit us at the Farm Next Innovation Tent. That'll be at the Farm Progress Show. And the dates are August 30th through September 1st. It's back in Boone, Iowa this year. That's all the time we have today. Join us next time on Farm Next, the show that gives you a front row seat into what's next in the world of agriculture. Farm Next has been brought to you by Pivot Bio. Pivot Bio, the nitrogen that stays put, whether or not. Farm Next is produced by 22 Creative Group in association with REL Productions and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. If you'd like more information about Farm Next, please visit pivotbio.com/farmnext.